I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
Excuse the intrusion. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon here in Atlanta. I hope it's as beautiful as up there in the DC area. But hey,
Nice.
either way, it's still the CRM Playaz, and that makes Friday fun.
It makes it beautiful.
Yes, but we're still sheltering. Although in Georgia, our governor, he opened up, I think as of yesterday, he signed something that opened up uh, the state for 65 and older to come out and do, live their life pre-COVID like.
Really smart as things begin to go back.
Yeah, just as it was like all these reports are coming out how we're back in a lot of locations. They're back to higher than even earlier on in this pandemic, outside of like New York and places like that. But yeah, it's not like it's gotten any better.
Your governor is really something else, man. It's like he wants to kill us, people like me, right? He literally wants to kill us, right? So he says, we don't need those old people anyway, right? So let them go out, let them have a good time and die happy, right? So, wow. I just like, what needs to be opened up? The guy's head so you can look at the brain so you can do surgery to correct whatever's wrong with him.
Well, we're not even going to talk about the out and out fiasco that election day was here.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be the norm anyway. That didn't seem like that was just as much pre-COVID as now.
Yeah, but this had a special because this isn't like the actual election. This is just the primary stuff.
I know.
Which is usually a fraction of people, but we'll get away from that because this isn't excuse the intrusion politics.
That'll be another one of our live webinars later.
Although I guess the first thing we're going to talk about, it is sports related, and it is, to me, just eye-opening. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. This was not one of the things I was expecting to see. So let me just pop open what I'm talking about here, and I still kind of leaves me a little speechless seeing this headline.
I know. Well, actually, the subheads even more leaves me a little more speechless. Its most recognizable brand is the Confederate flag.
Hey, I live about 25 minutes from the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I can vouch for that.
Oh my God.
When there's a race schedule going on that Sunday, because they're usually on Sundays. I guess they do weekend racing, but the big races are usually on Sunday. Man, you do not go anywhere near the highway because it's just a big trek of people going down there, and you see so many rebel flags and like dudes looking like Robert E. Lee. It is something to see. So, and that's just Atlanta. I mean, that's kind of the case at most of those motor speedways. So when I saw this, I was like, and it wasn't like it was led by corporate, although I think corporate definitely got behind it. It was by the drivers.
Christine had to have something to do with this.
Yeah, I give her full credit.
I do too.
But it was actually led by like drivers.
Yeah, Bubba Wallace, I think, is the
Bubba Wallace. Jimmy Johnson, I think, was also one of the.
I know.
So the fact that it's the drivers who led this, and let's face it, I mean, we know there are some folks who are not happy about this, but they did it.
I saw one headline that said, and I'm kind of butchering the headline, unfortunately, but you'll get the idea. It basically said, NASCAR driver resigns, had as many wins as the Confederates did. That was it. That wasn't it. It was actually better than that.
Now this is the guy though.
I know. What's his name?
Ray Ciccarelli.
Yeah, Ciccarelli.
Wasn't there Wasn't there a good hockey player, Dino
Dino, yeah,
Ciccarelli.
he was a lot better than this guy.
Yeah, Dino was way better in hockey than this guy is apparently driving his car.
I got to see if I got to find that headline was pretty awesome. I have to say.
Now, what was really good about this, because I definitely did post this on my Facebook page, and the best response. Let me see if I can pull that up. Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll just bring it to us until I find it. And it's from a buddy of ours, actually. Let me see if I can find that. Somebody that, yep, here it is. So this is the response. So there's the article, and here is the response from our buddy Sandy Lowe. Now, do you know what "Bye Felicia" means?
No, I actually saw you and she. You said bye, Felicia, and then so did she.
Well, I just did the verbals. She did the Bitmoji thing. Are you into Bitmojis, by the way?
Yeah. No, I'll actually put one of mine up.
I'm not into Bitmojis.
I'm into this particular. Well, I'm into this particular one. Oh, actually,
well, so this I don't tell her I said this, but I actually like this Bitmoji because it's funny. And the whole "Bye Felicia." So have you ever seen the movie Friday?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, Ice Cube.
Yeah. There was a sequel too.
There was like 3, and actually, ironically, they're going to do another sequel. It's like The Last Friday, I think is what they're called, or something like that. Which is like 20-something years after the very first one. So, oh boy, let me put this up. Yeah.
Oh no, she knows. She and I exchange them all the time. So
yeah.
I only know how to do it on my phone. So here's me. Right.
Hold on. Let me give you. Let me give you. There it is. Oh boy,
that's my big monkey.
There it is.
What's amazing is I didn't realize this, but I actually searched for Bitmoji that said "Bye Felicia," and it was there. Like they actually are in that library.
That is one of the most memorable statements and scenes and lines coming out of that movie.
I totally forgot it.
Yeah. So every time somebody does something really stupid, "Bye Felicia." That's all you need to say. And so when this guy who had never won a thing, I mean, I think you and I have won just as much as this guy in NASCAR. So when he makes his stand and says, "Well, if you're going to do that, I'm never going to drive again." What's the name? Bye
Ray.
Whatever. Yeah, bye Ray.
Well,
bye Felicia Ray.
Felicia Ray. Actually, that's
wasn't that a movie with Sally Field?
Yeah, no.
Norma
Ray, which is such a good movie. Oh, I love that movie. LeBron said, "No one's going to miss you." Right?
Yeah, and LeBron is right.
Yeah, he's not kidding. In fact, I'm sure they're glad you're not there anymore.
But here's the thing: it even went a step. So getting rid of the Confederate flag was huge. But now Bubba has kind of upped the ante here, and let's say Bubba is going beyond just the taking the flag.
Go Bubba! Wow,
Bubba is going all bore. He's going to be driving the BLM car.
So we're going to go from "Bye Felicia" to "Hi Bubba,"
or from Sanford and Son. There's a character. One of Fred's best buddies was Bubba Bexley.
That's right.
And his nickname was Bad Boy Bubba.
Wow. We got a new Bad Boy Bubba.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's going to be Bad Boy Bubba driving the BLM car. That's a lot of B's, but that's all right.
It works. Whoa. That's amazing.
So just think about in the span of a couple of days, no Confederate flag and a dude driving a car labeled Black Lives Matter.
Well,
that's amazing.
This is the first time ever. And it's one of the big differences. Well, it's one of the big changes is we're seeing this actually change the culture. Right. That's what it always takes. You can't just change things through legislation here and there. If the culture doesn't change, then it's going to perpetuate. So it's the beginning of a change in the culture, I think. I hope.
Well, yeah, well, it's still to be determined, but even so, what's really fascinating to me is of all the sporting leagues, I would have thought would have made the most dramatic stance. And maybe the NFL and what Kaepernick did gets a little short shifted because it's a league made up of predominantly of black players. So you expect, I think I would expect to see big statements made from a league that has more black folks in it. So that's why I'm saying to see NASCAR do this and knowing what the fan base is like, that takes a lot of courage, man. That takes a lot of guts.
Oh, I think it's amazing, actually. And again, like you, I completely. It would have been the last. I'm trying to think. Is anything at all? I would have thought it was even lower on the chain as doing this. And the answer is no. I can't literally, unless there's something called the Ku Klux Klan league, right? I would not have imagined it. I know that now the NFL actually, it took a lot of them getting shamed to actually do something, right? I mean, that was the thing that was astonishing to me. Now they did finally put some words into action. I know I think yesterday maybe they pledged $250 million to over the next 10 years to fight systemic racism or systematic racism. I don't know if they said systemic. I can't remember.
I think it
was systematic. Not systemic. I doubt that's smart. But there was somebody, and I don't know who it was. I don't remember. One of the players kind of smartly said, well, you know what? That's all great. But ultimately, they're going to have to deal with Colin Kaepernick, right?
Well, that's the thing. And this is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, or maybe it's the 800-pound gorilla that's missing in the room.
Yeah.
There's now they're saying the right things. I saw a study or a survey that was put on the news that said that, and this is really kind of unbelievable to me because especially when you think back to 2016 when Kaepernick started doing this thing. The study said that 52% now say it's okay to take a knee at a football game to protest police killings. 52%. Before, I think it was like 20 something percent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of amazing. So yeah, the NFL is, Roger Goodell came out and said, the right things. And you see stuff like this, the Juneteenth thing, that's big too. But it's kind of hard for you to do this and say all these things if you don't acknowledge Kaepernick in some way. It just rings a bit. It feels a bit hollow. Now I have never really been the hugest Kaepernick fan because he was a 49er, so I'm legally not allowed to be a fan. But how can you do this stuff and not recognize him in some form? I'm not even saying you got to give him a job because quite honestly, he's a quarterback who hasn't played in 4 years. I don't know how good a quarterback he is anymore. And I can even understand being a coach or an owner and saying, well, if this guy, will he come in and be okay with being a backup? And will my starter feel okay about having a backup who's going to get way more attention than what he's worth football wise? That's all I'm going to say on that. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but how can you ignore him? Let me answer Sandy's question here. That's actually the only reason I would say probably not is because the offense is not set up. Goff and Kaepernick are two completely different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have two completely different schemes ready to go. and I'm just worried about one scheme at this point. And as far as you saying 49ers, I'm taking that off the screen right now. So what do you think?
They owe him. See, one of the problems is it's not like he's owed, reparations or anything. I mean, he basically is a wealthy guy, right?
Didn't he do a settlement of an undisclosed amount?
Yeah, sure. And ultimately, again, money's better spent elsewhere than him. Okay. But that said, the guy's owed a big apology and something beyond even the apology, just not necessarily lots of money, right? But something beyond the apology, right? And I mean, he did something that in retrospect, even though he's a well-off player and basically went down to a knee and didn't get shot, right. What he did was actually worthy of respect because it went against every norm and all social pressure and political pressure and everything else to do what he believed was the right thing. And, let's say this, some of the framework we now see because of George Floyd's murder is that partly because of him, right? Meaning he actually had an impact prior to all of this that did start driving discussion at a level that we hadn't seen for quite a while. Right. And partly because he was a celebrity, and did put his neck out a little bit. And so, we have to be careful, of course, and not equating what he did with, people who are basically getting shot doing it, doing things like that. But we also have to admire and respect it. And at the same time, unless the NFL literally apologizes to him, they're still not going far enough. No matter what, they could commit $1 billion and they're not going far.
Right. They gotta be upfront and be very out in the open and put a big spotlight on acknowledging what he did. And Acknowledging that the way that they handled it initially was wrong, if not terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And the reason why he started it was because of what we saw happened to George Floyd. He started the knee thing to protest police killing black guys.
Yeah.
The only reason that it didn't get a lot of attention back when he was doing it was because there was no video of a cop with a knee on a guy's neck for 9 minutes, slowly killing somebody
with a disgustingly smug look on his face.
Very smug. So that was the element, I guess, that America needed in order for what Colin Kaepernick was already protesting to come up on board with him, because he led in terms of years on this particular, what's happened. And it took that video for the rest of the country to come with him. So the NFL not acknowledging that in any very specific, very outward showing way, it does not allow you to feel like they've come as far as they need to come, right. Even all the things he said.
Again, to me, some of it's just because, with all the years, I spent in politics, one thing I always learned, there are people who do things because they're supposed to. And then meaning that social pressure and political pressure is so great that they respond that way in order to, the best way to put it is propitiate the gods, right? And basically take the pressure off of them. And then there are people who do it from the standpoint of, and just the only way to put it really, a purity of their heart, meaning they actually care enough to stand stand for something or against something that goes against what acceptable and willing to risk things to do it. And the NFL is doing this long after they should have done this, right? I mean, so it's not like you sit there and clap, 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 you finally come to grips with all your issues. They haven't, but they're doing it because social pressure is at a point. It's like all these, we see it all the time with these 8 trillion statements now coming out from every company, which pretty much do exactly the same thing that they got from a Word template, I think. And
there's a template out there. It's the BLM corporate template.
Yeah. Sign here, right? So, they're meaningless unless action is taken, and none of them have, not a single one actually indicated a single action. They're just, we stand with. You stand with because you're feeling like you're being forced to, not because necessarily you truly believe it. Now you may, but there's no way to judge right now. There's no way to figure that out because of what's going on. And same with the teams and the leagues and everybody else. Every league, I think, has pretty much made that statement.
It's either you stand with or you get trampled and steamrolled, because that's the way this is gone. And it took that video to get people out in the streets for, I mean, what is this, like 3 weeks of protesting at this point, or close to it? I mean, that's
every day in DC.
Yeah. So it's different, but we'll see. What I would like to see the NFL do in acknowledging Colin Kaepernick is to not only acknowledge Colin Kaepernick, but also maybe team up with him, and let's turn this into a way to get the football fans and young football fans in particular to the voting booths, to turn this protest into something that could be make a difference on November the 3rd, not just, kind of now. I think, and Colin Kaepernick, because he said something that kind of irritated me back then about he didn't want to participate in the system, so he didn't vote or something like that. And he could acknowledge, he has a little acknowledgement he could do too, and say, you know what, I wish I had thought about that a little bit more. This time around, we need to vote, and we need to vote for, who's going to look after our best interests. And that could be a great situation. That could be both the NFL acknowledging that they were wrong, and Colin saying, you know what, I wish I could have done a better by saying voting does matter, and let's go out and do this now together. That could be great.
I'm with you on that one totally. I mean, when I was young, of course, I wasn't with you on that one. But now, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be voting on people and issues that are going to change a lot of this. And, the protests are very important, right? Especially now. However, if they don't lead to action and program, they end up like Occupy Democracy did, which I used to call whiners on weekends in tents. Right?
What was that, Occupy Wall Street?
Occupy Wall Street, rather.
Yeah.
Right. Occupy Wall Street. They were whiners on weekends in tents, right? Because they went out, they picnicked on the weekend. They said, we have no programs, we have no leaders. And then they went home. Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So instead of the moment turning into a movement, it just stayed a moment. Again, moments go away.
A moment where they ate cheese and wine.
Right. So, but this could be a way to turn it into a movement and make it do stuff. All right. So Sandy says, I'd like to see him make a speech in the first game of the season and see every single NFL player and commissioner leadership kneel in solidarity. Also, Cap apologizing for making that statement. He said he was wrong for good. That would be great. Make up for it. They can all make up for it, and they can all do something really big.
I like Sandy's idea, actually.
It's a great idea. Don't tell her I said that, though.
No, I won't. I'll keep it secret.
Yeah, thank you. And here's the other. I'll tell her this, though. No, I'm not getting into the Bitmoji game. Sorry. Can't do it. But I like her idea.
There are RAM Bitmojis, though. They really are. That's how I got these Yankee Bitmojis. Every team has Bitmojis.
Speaking of Yankee Bitmojis, that brings up the next topic. If I can find this. All right. I think you're going to like this one.
Yeah. I'm jealous of that one, man. That was amazing. He had six signed, like, not only vintage baseball cards, but they were literally the actual autographs, 6 of them with Babe Ruth. 6.
Wow.
On cards that by themselves are worth tens of thousands of dollars. I mean,
that's amazing.
This industry. So there's this company, an auction house called Heritage Auctions, and part of what they auction, they have they're a really big auction house. They do coins, stamps, wines, antiques, and sports memorabilia is one of the big ones. And I've actually been on, not sports, I've been on some of the coins that at varying times, won a couple of them, but they know my interests lie with the sports too. So they send me the catalogs, and you look at these cards, all right, and you see like a card like this Babe Ruth card, and depending on the actual case and what it says for the grade and everything else, these are they usually, this means PSA certified, right? And they have grades up to 10. And a 10 is like super mint condition. There's very few 10s of anything. These cards, I'm watching these realized auction prices for their last auction: 450,000, $1 million, right? 90,000, 275,000. They're baseball cards, right? They're a piece of cardboard with a picture, right? But it doesn't matter. You should see the numbers that these things go
Well,
for.
what was that? What was the most expensive one? Wasn't that Honus Wagner card?
Yeah, the Caparel Tobacco Company. They call it the T206. That card's $4 million. I think was the last sale of it. There may have been one since then. The thing about it is, just about each sale, it might be slightly off on this number, but it almost doubles in value, right? Jeez. And the one that sells like that is the best condition one of all. There are several other ones like that, but they all sell for like, 700,000, $1 million. It's just like incredible. I mean, just imagine Honus Wagner saying, "Let me just sell my baseball card." I mean, that, don't forget, he was probably making $10,000 a year, right, when he was a shortstop with the Pirates in 1909, and they're now selling his baseball card for $4 million. I literally would wonder what the hell that guy thinks if he ever saw that. What would he think?
He probably wouldn't even believe it.
He'd say, I'm getting my cards back, man. I'm selling them.
That is, I mean, those numbers are just, wow.
And finds like that, this old, I think he was a janitor, if I remember correctly, who at 97 years old, I think he passed away, and his relatives found this in the attic, and he never really talked about it much, except, I guess, sort of, cryptically with his nieces and nephews. And he said, "When I pass away, you'll know what I mean." And then they found it, and now they know what it means. The number is apparently millions and millions of dollars they're going to sell this thing for.
Jeez.
Oh, my God. Well, it's an astonishing business, I have to say. And, a lot of it really goes to the heart of baseball itself, which is nostalgia, right? I mean, this is nostalgia for the great days. Like, remember when I was telling you a few weeks ago, at night, I'd go to sleep listening to Major League Baseball channel, and because there was no baseball, as there still is no baseball, they were broadcasting classic games.
Yeah.
So I would listen to games that Red Barber and Mel Allen were broadcasting in the 50s or early 60s with Mickey Mantle, coming up to the plate. And I listened to Mantle and Richardson and Kubek and Berra and, Scour and Howard, the whole team. And it was like bringing back my childhood. And then I listened to games even earlier, like with Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, right, coming to the plate. And I'd listen a bit. You're hearing it on the radio. There's something about radio baseball in particular.
Yeah.
It is phenomenally, it's better than TV. It's better than anything. It's listening to baseball on a radio, because your imagination is there, and it really does bring out the nostalgia of your youth, right? And so I'm listening to these games, and I'll put it this way. Didn't take me long to calm down and go to sleep, because these things made me so happy to hear, right? Although I honestly think when I was a little kid, the way I used to get to sleep was I'd start broadcasting the Yankee games in my head. I just broadcast, and I literally was so boring, I put myself to sleep. I was a terrible broadcaster.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, but I love that. I mean,
did you ever watch While Laying in the Tall Cotton?
No.
Isn't that what Red Barber used to say?
Oh no! Red Barber. My favorite Red Barberism was a guy would make this difficult play look easy, like infielder or something, and he'd go, "Wow, that was as easy as swallowing boiled okra."
That just doesn't sound all that easy, because
no, well,
I don't like okra.
I don't either.
Although okra it's
slime.
It's
well, I mean, but I think that's kind of was half his point.
That's his point, but
down easy, but it tasted terrible.
That taste is disgusting.
No, I'm with you on okra, man. I hate it.
Okay, so I need for you to brace yourself for the next one here.
Right.
This one's gonna hit home, close to home, but actually home. Somebody's home.
Yeah,
Mickey's home.
this is what makes me want to bring back the death penalty. Let me make it simple. Just read the comments underneath on that one. You start seeing comments like, well, somebody said, how should this guy be punished? They said, just put him in a room with some Yankee fans.
I mean, that house, that's not much of a house either.
No, he was born very poor. You know, Mantle was born in
Oklahoma, right?
Commerce,
That's
which
right.
is a mining town, right? It's basically coal miners, and 9/10 of the town had black lung. You know, and
Jeez.
oh, it's horrible. His dad died when he was like Mickey Mantle. One of the reasons he was such a hard partier, he thought he'd be dead by the time he was 40.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
Yeah, it was a whole thing about him, and he just was figuring it out, go out blazing, you know. And he lived to be what was it, 66, I think, and before he passed away from cancer, which he got from I'm sorry, not cancer, cirrhosis of the liver, basically. Yeah, because he drank so much, right? And he outlived his dad by 26, 27 years. And I mean, but why would you even do that? I mean,
I don't know.
I understand it more that you stole stuff from it than vandalized it.
I'm just glad that they renamed the town e-commerce because it keeps it a little more up to date.
Maybe this was a digital image that they photoshopped instead.
Maybe they were trying to do a digital transformation of the house.
No, they photoshopped a digital image. Right, I'm convinced. This was horrid, man. I don't get what goes through the head of a human when you do crap like that. I mean, it's not life and death, but the reality is, why would you even do it? Why? What would be?
I don't know why you do it.
Red Sox fan.
So do you think we will see baseball this year?
I don't know, man. I'll put it this way. Right now, the dealings are so nasty. They're so acrimonious. It basically, no matter whether we see it or not, you're going to realize, wow, the owners and the players hate each other. And this is pretty horrible. It's a real black eye for the whole major league. Of all the leagues, baseball is getting the biggest black eye out of this by a long shot, really. Every other league at some level is responsive. Baseball is just looking greedy. That's pretty much all it looks like. What are you reading about what baseball is doing for helping in the pandemic? Nothing. All you're reading about is 76 games, 81 games, 114 games, prorated pay, not prorated pay, all full pay, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like they're arguing over money, period. They don't care about its impact on national. Here's the thing. Even though the Yankees lost the 2001 World Series, having a World Series in New York after 9/11 was
huge.
So important. It was unbelievable. It changed the culture, the nature of the feeling of the country, and certainly boosted New York at a level that they desperately needed. But so now we're in the middle of something worse than even that, right? And baseball just looks to be a bunch of petulant millionaires and billionaires fighting over a piece of pie called, greenbacks and dollars. It looks disgusting. And I am sure they're doing stuff for COVID-19, but it's being completely overwhelmed by it's just so disappointing to me. I've never been so disappointed in baseball. I actually got a refund on my MLB TV thing. I've had that since day one that they offered it, and I pulled it back, and I don't know if I'll subscribe this year. We'll see if they.
I gotta show you this because this is kind of funny. I don't know if Sandy is still out there, but I'm going to pop up what she said just a few minutes ago.
Okay.
See every single NFL player and commissioner take a knee. All right. So that's what she said a few minutes ago. This next article that I'm about to pop up, it says it was published at 3:22 p.m. East Coast time.
So they heard Sandy.
At least Bill O'Brien heard.
Wow. Way to go, Sandy.
She's got one coach down and like 30 more to go, and then the commish.
Wow. Now that's something.
Yeah, quite honestly, I think he's not that great a coach, but this,
Oh, I agree.
but this is kind of cool.
Says he's a GM too, though, so maybe we'll treat him as a general manager doing it.
He's not a good GM either.
I know, but
he made some terrible trades the last couple of months. But this, I give him a lot of credit for this.
Yeah, he's the first, I guess, to come out publicly on that.
I think the first coach. Yeah. Did Drew Brees say he would do that? On his policy.
Yeah. Well, Drew Brees is already. Yeah, he's already old news.
Yeah, you remember it wasn't it just last week we had that pretty good. I thought it was a really great discussion. But you know what changed everything for Drew Brees? His teammates coming out and saying they accepted his apology, and they all came out for him, and I think that changed it for him.
Yeah. Well, the good news is a good man is no longer in the spotlight and looking terrible, right?
Well, he still, has to follow up, but yeah, he's got the opportunity to follow up.
And given his history, I literally have no doubt that he will take all the actions he's planning on taking.
Yeah, I'm sure this is just the beginning.
Yeah, good for him.
I give Bill O'Brien credit, and I give Sandy credit for calling him out,
starting the wave.
Next thing we're gonna have to see is Bill O'Brien have a Bye Felicia Bitmoji that he can use.
He'll have a Houston Texan uniform though. It'll be different. I'm sure there's a Houston Texan Bitmoji. I don't. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, every team, every league is in there. I'm pretty sure, or every team. I'm pretty sure.
So, let me ask you. I've been thinking about this for myself. What is your absolute most favorite sports year and why?
Okay, while I'm thinking about that, why don't you tell me yours?
Well, I got a couple of obvious ones. 1999 was pretty good. That was the year the Rams finally won a Super Bowl in Atlanta, in my hometown. That was and the way they won it. That game was great. Right to the last play when we tackled the guy. Mike Jones made the tackle, the one at the 1 yard line that saved us. Well, we were ahead 23-16. So the most that would have happened, because Jeff, what's his name, Fisher, the worst coach we ever had in our league, in our history, he probably would have found a way to bungle it anyway. But if they had scored, it would have gone into overtime. Still think we probably would have won. But that was great. Sixers winning in 82-83, that was huge for me. As a kid, seeing Eric Dickerson break the record that year, that was 1984. That's a big one. But because we won the Super Bowl, I'm going to say 1999.
Okay, so for me, it's again, it's kind of varied. Like you and the Rams, it's kind of me and the Yankees, but I'm torn because 61 obviously was just a thoroughly enjoyable year. The Yankees were an amazing team, and they just raked when it came to the World Series. I mean, they pretty much, I think they won over the Reds four games straight, right? And that was the end of that. But I think the year, oddly, and this probably won't be surprising, even though I was very young, I loved the most was 1956, right? Which, of course, is the name of the company. Well, one, Mickey Mantle, that was my first year watching baseball, and I loved the Yankees were absolutely phenomenal that year, right? And think about, not only were the Yankees phenomenal win the World Series, but the Giants won the NFL, right? And Larson pitches the only perfect game in World Series history, and Mantle wins the Triple Crown all in 1 year, right? All of those things happened in 1 year. The Knicks were terrible, and I don't remember what I wasn't really a Rangers or a Knicks fan then, but I was a Yankees and a Giants fan. Those were my first years for both of those teams. And the Giants, I'm trying to remember, but I want to say they were like 8-3, and there was a tie, maybe 8-3-1. It was 12-game season back then. So 8-3-1. And the Yankees, of course, I don't even remember what they were, but they won like 99 games or something. But just the performance level of both teams was spectacular. And in a single year, we got the 2 major sports championships, right? So if I have to pick a year, I pick that year for it. Yeah. I mean, interesting you said that, because I used to think it was just 61, but it's really 56. 56.
I had some really, I mean, when I was a kid in the 70s and the early 80s, particularly, but for the Rams, there was a stretch from 73 to 79. I think that's the stretch. We won 7 straight NFC West titles.
Wow.
And it was great, but it always ended wrong. I mean, horribly wrong. You know, either the Vikings would beat us or the Cowboys would beat us. It was just so frustrating. But up until, the playoffs, it was so much fun. I really, and I was also, when I was a kid, I grew up like a Phillies fan. And my favorite baseball player, I guess really of all time, would be Gary Maddox. And he came over from the Giants. I forget who he was traded for, but he came up. And then I love Steve Carlton as a pitcher. Of course, as I got older, I found out he wasn't the greatest person. But as a pitcher, I loved him.
Well, you can't look. I mean, think about Carlton for a minute. I mean, as he truly was so awful that it almost negates him as a pitcher, right? But you remember that year he won 27 games. The whole team won like 60.
It was 27-10.
Right.
And the team was awful.
Right. And he won like half the games.
And I think he ended up winning the Cy Young that year.
Right. If he didn't, that would be like a travesty, actually. I mean, winning 27 games on a team that only won like 55 or 60 is like, look, that is an unduplicatable.
You know what? There's a common denominator in there. I just thought about this.
What's that?
You remember who was the catcher for Bob Gibson in the year of the pitcher?
The catcher?
Yeah.
Who was the catcher on the Cardinals?
Deion Sanders' best buddy.
I don't remember. Boy, it'll come to me in a minute. I can't believe I'm not remembering. I used to know this stuff. Tim McCarver.
Guess who caught Carlton?
McCarver. Holy crap.
He was like his caddy.
As bad as a broadcaster as he was that good a catcher. He really was a great catcher. I have to give it to him. And you know what he did that I never see catchers do? He stole bases. He would steal like 15, 20 bases a year for a catcher with legs.
I think there was one other catcher that did that. You remember Ted Simmons for the Cardinals?
Yeah, of course. Another great.
He's a switch hitting catcher.
Yeah.
And I remember him stealing a base or two.
And he and McCarver both hit in the 300 range, pretty consistently. I mean, again, McCarver was as bad a broadcaster as he was good as a catcher.
Well, think about the personalities that he caught. Bob Gibson was no easy personality.
No.
And Carlton was a nut. I mean, he was so. I don't know how you classify his personality. It was terrible.
He's institutionalizable.
Yeah, but McCarver, got to give him credit. He was responsible for 2 of the most phenomenal seasons a pitcher ever had. Yeah,
well, the thing about him that even as a bad broadcaster, you got the impression was he was pretty easygoing, right? You never got the impression the guy got mad very much, right? He just kind of handled things as they came along. I just didn't think he was a great, analyst, really. I mean, but
I never liked him. No. Well, him and Buck together. Oh, that was just brutal.
Yeah, but he wasn't a bad person, right? You never got the idea of, I hate this guy's personality, because he was very easygoing and pleasant all the time. He's kind of like who happens to be a very good broadcaster, Kenny Singleton on the Yankees, right? Kenny Singleton's a terrific broadcaster, and In fact,
he was with the Cardinals too, wasn't he?
no,
That's
Singleton was more with the Orioles than any other team, and was
Orioles. Okay.
hell of a baseball player. I think his lifetime average is like 285 or 280 or something, and he hit several years. He hit 30, 35 homers, drove in 100 something runs. I mean, the guy was a really good ball player. You listen to this guy, he's a very sweet person, like truly sweet human being. And he's a good broadcaster. In fact, he was going to retire 2 years ago, and the Yankees spent a lot of time talking him out of complete retirement. So he does like 50 games a year. There we go. So yeah, 282 and 246 homers. There we go. Let's see. Can you?
Oh, he was like Houston. Yeah. Oh, Houston, Baltimore,
Baltimore
Montreal.
was the big one for him. Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore. Yeah. And the Mets.
Yeah, that was the tail end, I think, wasn't it?
No, that was the beginning.
That was the very beginning, yeah. So, but look at his numbers, his homers, like 24, 35, 20. Is that
246 total?
Yeah, which is a solid amount of homers. His RBI totals, look, he had that period in what, 70, I can't read it, 76 and 75, where he drove in 104, 111 runs. I mean, the guy was really just a straight out good base, and defensively solid too. He's like one of these guys who gets less credit than he's due because he's completely reliable every year, all the time, right? So, and as a broadcaster, terrific broadcaster, has a lot of really good insight, and you just love him as like his son played in the majors too. I think it's Chris Singleton, and.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Kenny, I love listening to him talk because he, aside from the insight, you're just so likable. He's like the most likable human being. It's like, you're a good man. That's what you keep saying to yourself when you watch him talk. So, and I think McCarver wasn't that, but McCarver was as kind of easygoing in the same way when he was broadcasting. Bad broadcaster, but he didn't get ruffled by very much. So dealing with Gibson, dealing with, Carlton, you could see it. You could see he could handle it.
All right. So we went down this road. So I'm going to continue going down this road, and I'm going to let you think about who you want to see. But I'm on Baseball Reference, and that just makes me pause and go to a certain player's certain year.
I know that already.
Yeah, because this is my favorite baseball year stat line of all time.
Yep.
So I'm going there, and I'm going to let you think about who you want to see. But whenever I think of a year of just complete and utter dominance in baseball, it has to be and it's not even the year that everybody thinks about, because when you think about Barry Bonds, people most point to 2001 with the 73 home runs, which of course, some people put an asterisk on that. I don't. He hit it. But to me, the most impressive year I've ever seen, it's at least definitely in my lifetime. And I can't think of any better, just thoroughly going through the whole stat line than what Barry Bonds did in 2004. And there's one thing, there's a lot of stuff that jumps out. He batted 362. He led the league in hitting that year. He had, of course, 45 home runs, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he only struck out 41 times.
I know. And how many at-bats do we have, too? Take a look at that.
His official at-bats. That's the thing. He only had that low a number of official at-bats because there's another number. That number that says 232, which is the number of times he was walked that year. And then that's hard enough. But 120 of those were intentional walks.
And that was the year he was being walked intentionally with bases loaded.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, a Buck Showalter.
Yeah, and you know what? Nobody said that was a stupid move. Nobody, literally nobody said, "Oh, what a stupid move that is." He gave up a run. Everyone thought, "Yeah, probably pretty smart."
The guy his look at the. I, I could go on with these astounding numbers. I think maybe the most astounding. His on base percentage was 609.
I know.
That's
That's just like out of the question. I think Babe Ruth had a number close to that once, may have even exceeded that. Let me check.
yeah. Well, you give me the year and we'll bring him up.
No, he's not. I want to go to Pro Football Reference for something.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to introduce somebody.
While you do that, so he had a slugging percentage over 800 in the OPS. I think that's a record. A 1422 OPS. That's got to be a record. Yep. And then the last one I'll point out, because this is the one that will never, ever be duplicated as long as anybody's playing baseball. This guy, I want to make sure I get this right. He was on base more than he had official at bats. That just doesn't make any sense.
That's hysterical. That's really funny.
So he was literally his on base to at bat percentage is 1,000. It was actually is over 1,000 because he literally had more. He was literally more on base more times than he actually had official at bats.
I know, it's amazing. Well, because walks don't count as official at bats.
Right.
What is that? Right. But that's absolutely fun. Look, that year, I just checked, by the way, Babe Ruth did not exceed that number. That year, though, I don't know that anybody ever had a better year than that. I mean,
he literally only got like one or two at bats. I mean, real good pitches.
I know.
Now, and he would take them out. I mean, it was just amazing. Remember, I don't know if they were doing it that year or definitely during the year he broke the record. But whenever he was playing, ESPN would literally cut in to every at bat just to see him. And it was never done before or after.
Well, yeah. Well, look, there's only anticlimaxes after that year. Right? There's no other players ever going to do anything like that. All right. So mine, I want to introduce people. I'll share a screen here.
All right.
Let's see if I can do this. You see? What do you see? You see Pro Football Reference now?
Are you sharing it?
Yeah, I am actually.
I don't see it.
Because it's on a different. I'm not sure how to do this.
Well, tell me who you're.
No.
Tell me who you're looking for.
Home tab. Here we go. That'll do it. I got it.
Okay.
They actually have that. I got it. Here we go. Now you see.
All right, there it is.
All right. I want to introduce people to Homer Jones. To Homer Jones, who I guarantee almost every one of you never heard of. Right? This guy played as you can see, from 1964 to 69 with the Giants and 1970 briefly with Cleveland. What I want you to look at with this guy. So this is the era where Bob Hayes was being put forward as the fastest man alive, was a fantastic NFL receiver, would catch, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 passes. His yards per reception were high. This guy blew Bob Hayes away. Take a look just on yards per reception with Homer Jones, right? So start with 65. He averaged 27.3 yards per reception.
That's amazing.
And then every year, look at this. This is not like a one year, one trick pony guy. Look at every year until his last year with the Giants, which was only merely excellent, right? Every year was at least 20, close to 22, right? Every year from 65, 66, 21.8, 24.7, 23.5. Now, wait, the same year he averaged 24.7. He caught only 49 passes. Look how many were touchdowns.
I mean, he was like, remember what Buddy Ryan used to say about Chris Carter? All he does is catch touchdown passes.
Yeah, Homer Jones was so exciting to watch. I loved this guy, and I've never understood why he gets no credit whatsoever. He gets no credit whatsoever. I mean, you do not see this guy had a genuinely excellent NFL career. I mean, back then, 50 passes was meaningful.
Absolutely.
Right. So why doesn't he ever? No one knows his name. No one ever hears of him. Nothing. And he was wonderful. I mean, look at him. You see, when he played, he was 6'2" and 215, like a perfect, slim, fast guy, right? And seems to still be alive. I loved him. I tell you, I would watch him in awe. I mean, just in awe, watching this guy catch a pass. And the other thing is, look at on. Let's see if they have it on here. No, they don't really. I wanted to see if they had yards after. Maybe they do on a more advanced. See if they have a more advanced. No, doesn't look like it. I was trying to see if they had yards after catch, right?
Yeah.
Which is actually a big number. And this guy was, let's put it this way, he catches it 2 yards out and runs it 74 more, right? I mean, the guy, you would watch, he could elude people, but his speed, they made him, if you look at his early career, he was, actually his career, he was either a wide receiver or a split end. But his split end was obvious because, he lined up on the sidelines a lot. And some of it was just a straight out and out, right down the sidelines and beat everybody. And he just would beat everybody. So this is a guy, I just want people, we know Barry, everyone knows Barry Bonds. I'm of the mind, whether people listening or not, or maybe not be, but he should be in the Hall of Fame, period. I don't think it's even an issue to me. I'm sorry, the steroids didn't intentionally walk him 120 times. So, but Homer Jones is one of those players who shorter, smaller, much more minuscule career, but had I'll call it the equivalent of Bonds-like numbers on a small scale, right? I mean, you just don't see numbers like this anymore. You never, actually. You didn't see it before it or after it, too. Occasionally, maybe, but.
I guess, it's kind of strange because, I mean, it's playing with the Giants. He should have had great exposure, but it seemed like
they weren't.
No. Yeah, and the Cowboys back then were they were up and coming. They had, of course, Bullet Bob Hayes. They had Dandy Don. They had, they were starting to build that America's team kind of thing. And the Cowboys were in I saw this recent documentary on Dandy Don, and for 3 straight years they were in the NFL championship game. Of course, they lost to the Packers twice, and then they lost to. Did they lose to the Vikings or the Colts or one? I forget. But so Dandy Don, that was kind of why he retired, because he got tired of not being able to win the big one. And he didn't really play for all that long. I think he played from 60 to 68 or something like that. He wasn't even a quarterback when they won their first Super Bowl. That was Roger. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. You would think the Giants.
Well, and we had, our quarterback was Tarkenton. It's not,
because
really interesting team. It wasn't like, and he was one of, he was 20, I think. Oh, I don't remember exactly. This is memory though, so I may be completely wrong. That year, the year where Jones caught his 13 touchdown passes, Tarkenton threw 29, which means Jones caught nearly. Well, I don't know. I think our other quarterback was Orr Morrill, and I don't remember how many he threw. So let's even assume 3 more or 4 more. 33 passes. This guy caught 13 of them. Amazing.
Well, let's see. Tarkenton. He had left the Vikings I forget what the reason he left the Vikings, because remember he was with the Vikings, then went to the Giants for a few years, then went back to the Vikings.
Yeah, he was good with the Giants too. He actually was, even though we didn't have a very good team. So
did he follow up Y.A. Tittle right behind him, or was there somebody else in there between?
Let's see, so that was 67. Yeah, he would follow. It would be him right after Tittle.
I wonder why he left. Was it a money dispute or something? Because
the Viking, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah,
he was like the first great scrambling quarterback that I remember.
Yeah, I used to hate his guts because, like I said, every year it would be the Rams would have this great record, and get to the NFC Championship game, and we'd either lose to the Vikings or we'd lose to the Cowboys, and it just ruined my whole childhood, basically. So I hate Fran Tarkenton. I hate Chuck Foreman. I hate Roger Staubach. I hate Tony Dorsett. I just hate all those dudes.
See, now I like Tarkenton as a Giant. Actually, as a Viking, I liked watching him. I didn't like him, but I liked watching him because I still think he was the best scrambling quarterback until Randall Cunningham came along. And then Randall Cunningham just like blew everybody out of the water back then. I still remember that year he rushed for 994 yards and then punted 90 yards in addition that same year.
Well, and he had that one like 91-yard bomb where he was scrambling around and then just got enough time to launch, and he launched a 91-yard.
He was a pretty. I mean, that guy was for when his best years, he was great. He really was, but he was problematic.
Well, I will say this. Having Buddy Ryan as your head coach, who had zero interest in offense whatsoever, the way that, because I was up there, I was in Delaware, so I grew up watching the Eagles. I was never an Eagles fan. But when he brought, I think Randall was drafted in 1985 in the second round out of UNLV or something like that. And Ron Jaworski was the incumbent, but he was on his way out.
Yeah.
Remember, Ron, he got to the Eagles via trade with the Rams. So he was on his way out, but Buddy Ryan did this weird phase in where it would be third and long. That would be like third, 10, 15, 20. And he would bring in Randall and just tell him to make a play. That's how he got introduced into the Eagles. So he never, and then like his offensive coordinator was Rich Kotite. I mean, so Randall never had a chance. Basically. No. He never, but remember his best year was with the Vikings when they went to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Falcons. And that was Randy Moss's rookie year. So Randall, the first time he really had serious weapons, it was in Minnesota, where he had Randy Moss on one side, Chris Carter on the other side, and Jake Reed as the third wide receiver, and Steve Jordan as the tight end. And I forget who was the run. Oh, Robert Smith was the running back. He had a great offensive lineup, and he lit it up that year.
All right. I got one last question before we close. All right.
Yep.
NFL still the greatest single franchise of all time. And to me, it's a fairly easy answer. But for other people, it may not be. The greatest, and not your favorite, the greatest single franchise.
Oh, I know. I mean, that wouldn't have been a question.
Right.
That's really hard.
It's hard. I got one. I'm going to wait till your answer, though.
Over the full history.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given some of them came in later, we'll count that as the full history. They don't have to be an original.
I'm going to say the Steelers, only because they have 6. I think they have 6. Yeah, they have 6 Super Bowls, and 2 of them were kind of recent. And they owned a decade. They owned the 70s with the steel curtain. They have, I don't know how many Hall of Fame players. And I will never, ever say the Patriots. So don't even think
that wasn't even a question.
And the 49ers would have been maybe in that discussion. But once again, I'm a Rams fan, so I can't say that.
No, see, for me, it's close, but my number one is the Packers, right? Packers let's say this, they have the era of Vince Lombardi. They were just completely dominant, and they were, to me, my favorite football games of all time. Watching the Giants and the Packers play back in the early '60s were just phenomenal games. But I mean, the people on the team were, the people historically over the years. I mean, they've had as much as Bart Starr was not a current era quarterback, he was a great quarterback, like Hall of Fame great quarterback.
Well, he won because before the Super Bowl era, he won several championships.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm going back to that. The Packers were easily the team of this pretty much the 60s. It's really the late 50s into the 60s. I mean, the early 50s and mid 50s, and you'd have the Colts as a contender. The Steelers certainly dominated the 70s, but and the Packers were a little up and down that era, but they had some very good teams during that time. But I think for the combination of their total impact, their record, their total impact on the game itself, and the nature of the team, and the number of historic all-star, literally great NFL historic players, I go with the Packers as one, and the Steelers, I think, as two. They were my two.
Yeah, it's so tough. In the pre-Super Bowl era, the Browns were probably the most dominant team in the late 40s going into the 50s,
right?
With Automatic Otto, with I think they won 7 championships in 10 years or something like that.
They were Marion Motley, Dante Lavelli, Dub Jones. I mean, and then of course later on Jim Brown, right? I mean, to me, still, my personal thought is I still think he's the single greatest player in the history of the NFL.
Jim Brown for me. Yeah, I mean, the guy, and the way he went out on top too. I mean, he led the league in rushing 8 of his 9 years.
I remember he also had the halo effect on everybody. I remember the year he rushed for almost 2,000 yards, like 1,800 and something yards, and I think he averaged like 6.3. His other running back was Ernie Green. It was Jim Brown and Ernie Green, right? And Ernie Green averaged like 6.5 because everyone was so geared up to aiming and trying to stop Jim Brown that he just ran through lines. And he was Ernie Green was a good running back, right? He was not like, this is not a guy who said, oh,
he wasn't chopped liver.
No, not, thank you. He was not chopped liver. He wasn't seen as chopped liver.
Yes.
Say that. Right. So,
yeah, Jim Brown is
the best. I think the NFL's historic greatest is Jim Brown.
Yeah, you get no argument on me for that. I mean, that's although of course my personal favorite, but yeah, Jim Brown he's when you think of a football player, you just think of that guy. I mean, that dude looked like he was chiseled out of stone.
Yeah,
I mean, even his jaw looked like you punch it, your fist will shatter,
right, and your knuckles will be destroyed for life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
an industrial saw while you were mushing wood through it.
But I will say this: what's your, and we'll go after this. Who's your favorite? Who do you think is the best coach? We'll just say football coach
in history
of all time. I've got mine.
Jesus, man. That's a hard one. I mean, my problem is I think here I'm kind of biased by my era. So the one who immediately pops in mind, but isn't necessarily my choice, is Vince Lombardi, right? But
can't go wrong with Vince.
No, but that might be era bias too. Because I think of coaches like Bill Walsh, who revolutionized the game to some extent, right? Another one. And that might be,
That's my pick. That's my pick.
I would say for me, it'll be pretty much split between Walsh and Vince Lombardi.
I'm going Walsh mainly because he's the other guy that ruined my life in the 80s, because every year was them just destroying us. But think about, he learned under Paul Brown, and the West Coast offense started in Cincinnati. It didn't start in San Francisco. It was perfected in San Francisco, but it started with what's the guy's name? Ken
Stabler?
No, for the Bengals. Ken, what's his last name?
What are we looking for? A quarterback here or what?
Yeah, the quarterback is named Ken. I forget his last name.
Ken.
But yeah, He was with the Bengals, and that's where Bill Walsh started the short passing attack with this guy, and because this guy was extremely accurate.
And Anderson.
Kenny Anderson, that's it.
Kenny Anderson.
He was extremely accurate, and they had Isaac Curtis, and I forget the other folks they had. So Walsh took that, and remember, he thought he was going to be Paul Brown's successor. Instead, Paul Brown ended up giving it to this other dude who nobody will ever remember. And the reason it seemed like Paul Brown had a little bit of an axe to grind because Bill Walsh thought he was going. This is good. This is what really irritates me. Bill Walsh, was expected to sign with the Rams to be the Rams head coach, and the Rams management asked Paul Brown what he thought of Bill becoming a head coach. And he said some things that made them turn away from Bill Walsh, which I will hate Paul Brown for the rest of my life for doing that.
Yeah.
And so Bill Walsh had to go to Stanford because he couldn't get a head coaching job in the pros because Paul Brown blackballed him basically. And so he went to Stanford, which, Stanford was known for academics, not for football, but he went there and he turned it into a contender. It wasn't like a great team, but he turned it into a contender before he went to the Niners, who were out and out garbage before he got there. And within 3 years, he took them from like 3-12 to Super Bowl champs, perfected the West Coast offense. Was one of the things that gets overlooked was his eye for talent. He drafted down to get Jerry Rice because he went to the black schools and scouted Jerry Rice. And Jerry was not a fast guy coming out of Mississippi Valley State, I think. But Bill Walsh looked at him. He said, "This guy, I hope I can get him." He got John Taylor from Delaware State.
Yeah.
He got Roger Craig, and then Ronnie Lott. I mean, so he drafted this Charles Haley. I mean, he drafted guys, and Charles Haley was from, was it James Madison or some
local here?
So he was going to all these places that nobody else was looking at and finding these what end up to be Hall of Famers. And then look at the coaching staff he put together. His coaching tree is way better than anybody else's. And then finally, he wrote the book, that book about, the winning edge or something like that. And they call it the Bible of coaching. So you take all of that into consideration. He's my guy. I mean,
I can see it. I mean, again, for me, I just have era bias. That's all. I saw Vince Lombardi all the time in the 60s, watched his amazing teams. I mean, he didn't have a single mediocre player on his team, not one. Right?
Yeah.
Every single person on the Packer team in the early 60s was something, should have been an all-star if they weren't.
Think about that backfield: Horning and Jim Taylor, and Elijah Pitts.
After Jim Brown, Jim Taylor may be the number 2 greatest fullback of all time. He was when fullbacks ran. He averaged like 5.3 yards a carry, 4.8 yards a carry. I mean, the guy had moves and a little bit of speed, could roll over anybody. But there was also the Kramers, Ron on the offense, and then Jerry on the end, and you had the Willie Wood and Herb Adderley on defense, and I mean Nitschke. They're like, there's probably half the teams in the Hall of Fame, right? And I mean, it's like Lionel Aldridge was like a secondary player, and the guy is like would be great on any other team.
Did Jerry Kramer didn't Jerry Kramer just finally get into the Hall of Fame like last year or something like that? Yeah.
Yes, he was the long overdue person from the Packers who should have been on that team a long time ago. I mean, the teams were just absolutely mind-blowingly powerful. And just And Vince Lombardi knew how to make them a team, and that's the other thing.
And also, I mean, it was before the era of free agency, so you basically were able to keep all your players.
Well, and you know what? The Packers, to the credit of the town, they loved the team so much that even after these guys retired, they stuck around. Like
they're like gods.
Yeah. Well, Willie Wood just passed away not too long ago, unfortunately. But I remember being in Green Bay with my friend Wayne and Yvonne and Dorothy's and Wayne's wife, and we were going to Lambeau for to a game. And the night before, you go out and everybody in Green Bay kind of drinks and goes to bars and stuff and hangs out. And we're at this bar, and in the back of the room is Willie Wood and Herb Adderley just holding court, and just part of the town. It's not like they're trying to be exceptional or charging for autographs. They're just hanging out. And then, people, of course, everyone in town knows because they're always there. Everyone in town, even the younger people, know who these guys are. And it's the way the whole town is like that. They were tailgating 6 miles from the stadium in Target parking lots, right? I mean, the people at the stadium let you drive up onto their lawns with your cars to park for $1, right? And that's mostly so they can get some seed to cover up where you just wreck their lawn, right? I've never seen anything like it, and that embracing by the town had a lot to do with the quality and the talent of the team, because you knew you had to deliver on that. The town that took you that important to the fabric. It was. I've never experienced anything like that anywhere.
Well, I will say I think the most fun team to watch were the 70s Raiders.
Yeah.
Those guys they took, first of all, I mean, they would lay you out. They would cheap shot you.
Yeah.
They would stick them on. I mean, it was this fun. And then, I mean, you got the Holy Roller game, the Sea of Hands game, Ghost to the Post. They were in the Immaculate Reception. Of course, they're on the wrong end on the Immaculate Reception. Right. And that Super Bowl against the Vikings, they won 32-18. And the play that everybody remembers from that is when Sammy White went over the middle, caught the ball, and got baptized by, what do they call him? The assassin, Jack Tatum. And Tatum hit him so hard, his helmet went shooting the completely opposite direction. And somehow, I give Sammy White credit, he held on to the ball, but we were just thinking, man, it's a good thing his head wasn't still in, because the way that helmet shot, it was amazing. Well, I love watching those teams.
And the irony of it all is, if you ever saw the AFL version of the Oakland Raiders, it was like, imagine a team whose best player was the quarterback named Cotton Davidson. That pretty much says it all for Oakland in the 60s, the early 60s.
Well, no, but they did have.
They were okay. No, they had. But right.
They had one of the best nicknames of all time for a quarterback, Darryl LaMonica, a.k.a. the Mad Bomber.
That was a little late.
That was a great nickname.
Cotton Davidson was there. He was a horrible quarterback. He averaged 43. They had what they did have. No, that was actually San Diego had this guy, Keith Lincoln, who was fantastic. That's a whole other subject to a whole other day, is AFL and AFC and all of that.
Yeah, we'd be here all night if we didn't stop it now. All right, so that brings the end to another week. Next week is another week.
Yep, we got happy hour, 3:30 p.m. on Eastern Time on Wednesday. Few seats left, not many on this one. I'd be signing up. Watch for my notice on LinkedIn and Facebook on Monday. When we have our regular show on Thursday at 3 p.m. And Brent, why don't you just tell everybody before we go about how special this next week is?
Yeah, this one's going to be fun. We are actually doing, I think we talked about this last week about kind of my fondness for the crossover episodes between Law and Order and Homicide: Life on the Street, because I really like both those shows. They had great characters, and it was always a treat when it was like a Friday night, 9 to 11, Law and Order, and then they had the guys from Homicide on, and then at 10 to 11 it became Homicide, and it continued with the Law and Order guys on. So we thought, wouldn't it be kind of fun? At least we thought it would be fun if what if we did a crossover episode with the guys from Disrupt TV, Ray Wong and Vala Afshar. So we said, hey guys, you want to do it? And immediately the immediate response was, yeah. So next Thursday, we're going to have the Disrupt TV guys on for a segment. And then that following Friday, we are going to join them for a segment. So it's the crossover Thursday, Friday, CRM Playaz Disrupt TV.
The best ever. I'm on the DC Comics side of crossover events, but nonetheless, this one will beat Law and Order and DC Comics.
Guess what? It's also the third Thursday of the month.
Oh, my God.
So in addition to having the Disrupt TV guys, we got our lone remaining player in residence, L. Nicole, as we like to call her,
who happens to work for one of the Disrupt TV guys.
Yeah, so this is a complete mashup.
Oh my God. So she's obviously the key to the changes in the universe that will occur.
Yeah. So who's she going to favor, though?
I don't know. Well, the circumstances, given the difference in pay scale here, pretty clear.
People don't get paid from the players in a residency program until after they leave.
My God, do they ever?
And then it's a pretty nice step up.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, in the meantime, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.